Okay, so it looks like that's what we have, who we have for now, and we will. I'm sure we'll have some more folks trickling in a few minutes, but want to go ahead and kick stuff off today. Really appreciate you all joining us on this rather, at least in Central Virginia, it's rather kind of overcast and dreary, even though it is election day, so that's exciting. So wanted to go ahead and get started. I'm going to run through just a few housekeeping items really quickly, and then we'll introduce our guests, and we will get to talking about networking. So if we haven't met yet, my name is Becca Shelton. I am a career advisor here in the office, and I work specifically with our alumni and our grad students. So if we have any alumni out there, you get career services free for life, which is a really awesome benefit that not a lot of institutions in Virginia offer. So definitely take advantage. If you have questions about how to take advantage of that, just shoot me an email and let me know, bshelton@richmond.edu, and we can get started. But today's event, this is the second in our Real Talk series, which I'm really excited about. Last week, we talked about all things recruiting and job searching, but this week we're focusing on networking, which is a super important topic, but oftentimes networking gets a bad rap out there. People hear the word and it automatically induces cringe with folks, and they're like, I don't want to do that. That seems really not fun. So we're here today to hopefully make it more fun for you. And make it seem like something that you can get started with that doesn't feel awkward. So a few housekeeping items, and then we'll go ahead and introduce our speakers and get started. First of all, video and mute. Just ask that you keep yourself muted. I think everybody's used to it now in Zoom world. But you can keep your video on or off if you'd like. I do, really hope that this is an interactive session with folks. So there is no set time for questions. If you have questions, there's a few ways that you can submit those. And I do encourage you that when you have it, just ask it. There's, like I said, there's no set time that we're going to do some talking and then we're going into question mode. It's all jumbled together. So if you have questions, you can either submit them in the chat if you want to. You can submit them anonymously, and you can just direct message me if you have a question. And I can ask the speakers, or you can raise your hand with the little raise hand function and come off a video and ask that. So a few ways, but just make sure that you are asking questions. There's a really great chance to be in front of folks who have done networking and been successful at it. Let's see, so that was the questions. The other thing I have for you is this is a series that I'd really like to continue. If there are other topics that you are thinking, I really want to know more about that, and I would really like to talk to somebody who's done that kind of thing before, let me know. Shoot me an email. Be happy to try to put something together for you. So we will go ahead. We'll go ahead and introduce the speakers, and then I have a couple polls for you all just to sort of take the pulse of the room and see where we're at with that. So first of all, we have Dwayne Foster, who is a class of 2012, and we'll let them introduce themselves a little bit more in just a minute. And he majored in PPEL at UR. Young Ho Lee is class of 18, and he was a poli-sci major. So if any of you guys are out there, those majors, there you go, you got a friend. So let's go ahead and I want to take a pulse and just see where we're at with some folks and who we have in the room with us. So let me know really quickly in this poll how you're connected to the university. Okay, so it looks like we have most folks that answered, which is great. And I'll share our results, see what we got. Oh, awesome. So we have a fair amount of undergrad students, which is great. Alumni, and then we've got some, and maybe you are a little bit of both or a few things, which happens a lot at UR, which is great. So thanks for letting us know who we have in the room. And I wanted to take another poll really quickly. And apologies. So polls are sort of new for me. So This, I think, might help guide some of our conversations. So I'm really curious to see, for those in the room, if you want to share, what sort of, if there's anything holding you back, what is it? If you think it's other, that's maybe holding you back or not allowing you to do what you want to do with networking, you can drop that in the chat if you want to. Okay, so we got most of our folks, and what do we have here? Yeah, that's kind of maybe what I thought. I hear that a lot. Just really unsure how to get started, and other stuff that goes into just feeling maybe a little bit stuck about all this. So appreciate you guys sharing that information with us. That's also really helpful. That's one of my questions. So we'll go ahead and dive into our discussion. Like I said, feel free to ask questions in chat, or you can send them direct message to me anonymously, and I'll be happy to ask on your behalf. But I've got a few questions for Young Ho and Dwayne to start with. And as I said, feel free to pepper in questions whenever you want. So we'll go ahead and get started. You guys can answer whoever feels like it first. So super casual. And I want to ask a question. I know I didn't send it to you guys beforehand, so apologies. But I'm curious to know first, what, like, when you've been out of school for a little bit, and so when you think about, especially when you were a student to now, what does networking mean to you now?
I can go first, Dwayne, if you want. Hi, everybody. My name is Young Ho. I'm currently in Arlington, Virginia, right outside DC. As Becca mentioned, I graduated in 2018. I thought about networking a lot when I was a student, just because I was in a class, an SIR class, where we had to network with alumni. So I reached out to, I think, almost like 20 alumni when I was a sophomore. So it was kind of crazy. And I realized that looking back, networking definitely helped me get to where I am today, with my first internship, with my first job. And so it's always been this constant factor, but it's not without its like nervousness and fear. I was, as the questions, the polls mentioned, like I was always fear of just like someone telling me like, no, I don't want to talk to you, or no, I don't want to, know more or help you or anything like that. I was always scared of that. But over time, I realized it's not something to be scared of. It's more something to kind of just have a conversation with, learn more. I think that's the approach that I took, and I think it helped me a lot. So
Hi, everybody. As Becca mentioned, Dwayne Foster. I graduated from Richmond in 2012. I'm currently located in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I currently work for Twitter doing strategy and operations. I think for me, networking is like plainly just growing relationships with different folks. I think with networking, you should be kind of selfish to make sure you're growing relationships with people who can benefit you, but also trying to grow relationships with folks who you feel like you can benefit as well. Because I think a lot of people get, when they get more folks around them who are able to add more value, that helps to grow that relationships, and that helps to make them get in a better position to stick their neck out for you and put you in positions that help you as well. So at the end of the day, it's just growing strong relationships with folks.
Yeah, thank you. You guys are like teeing me up for all the things that I want to ask you, so thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely about growing relationships and maintaining that, and we'll get into that a little bit more, because I think, especially for folks who are young in their career, the question then becomes more of a nitty-gritty question, like, okay, that's cool, so like, how do I do that, right? Like, that's the tough part, the challenging part. But my next question for you is sort of about getting started. So, like I said earlier, networking usually, and I mean, I've been doing this for 12 or 13 years now. And I mean, almost every student and alumni that I talk to is a little bit cringy when they hear networking or going to a networking event. So when you guys were getting started with it, what helped you get going instead of just holding back and going, yeah, I don't think I'm going to do that, even though I know it's something that I want to do. So what helped you get started with this and have it feel a little bit less awkward?
Yeah, I would say for me, I think I was doing it before I knew I was doing it. So I was on campus and I started to, again, build relationships with different folks in different offices. So Dr. Bassesi and I were / are still pretty close. The folks in the career services office, we were pretty close. And through that, working, interacting with people, I got to build relationships with them, learn more about them. If I was interested in something or curious about something, folks would introduce me to somebody else who thought I could be good for something, and vice versa. So from that standpoint, I wasn't necessarily thinking of it as networking before I realized that's what I was doing. But when I got to my professional career, I started with Deloitte Consulting, and I will say that's just one big thing about the culture there. Networking is huge, so they bring it up a whole lot. It's something that they want you to do. Like, you're encouraged to meet with more senior leadership in the firm. You're encouraged to meet with people who went to the same school as you or who are in the same part of the firm. Or let's say you're working on a project that's dealing with X and you're interested in Y, you're encouraged to reach out to people who know about it. And based on that, you kind of have an entryway of comfortability because everybody is expected to reach out. So when you do reach out to somebody, 9 times out of 10, the person is going to say, yes, let's chat. What can I do to help you? So because of that, that expectation was set early in my career as something that I did more. And then as time progressed, again, as I started to work in different companies or different clients, I just got to meet different people, learn about them, introduce them to other people. And the one thing I'll continue to say throughout is just making sure you're adding value. So networking with that person, you're adding something to their conversation and relationship, and then also you're getting something out of it yourself.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I realized I forgot to say what company I work for. I currently work at HubSpot in onboarding professional services. For me, I did a lot of cold outreach when I was in school, and honestly, currently now I did just a lot of different methods of, what kind of people should I be looking for and how do I network. I definitely looked at companies over people initially. So I was looking at what companies I want to work for, what are the top 5, top 10 dream companies, and from there, who are the people that I can kind of connect with. The biggest advice I have for the initial stages is try to find common interests with people. So whether that's people from UR, whether that's people that did the same major as you. I even went so far as, like, I was in honor council. I tried to find people that also did the same clubs as me or studied abroad in the same country as me, because when you're doing that initial outreach, finding that common interest can definitely help you, like, have more of a conversation. And I found that most people definitely want to talk to you more if they know that, like, you've had a similar experience as you have. So that's been definitely helpful for me. But once you kind of prioritize your list and find that common interest, it really is just a matter of a numbers game. You want to just try to reach out to as many people. Dwayne mentioned, like, a lot of people are responsive, but I would say sometimes people get really busy or sometimes just don't have enough time. So the more people that you reach out to, the more chances you have to talk more and also get more referrals or just get more better practice at networking as well.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to ask you a follow-up question on that. So, so Dwayne talked a lot about at least at Deloitte using folks in his within his organization to get started and around campus as well. But Byung-ho, when you were doing sort of that cold outreach, in terms of getting down to brass tacks, like how did you find those people? How did you identify them?
Yeah, so a lot of it's LinkedIn, and I'm not sure if LinkedIn is still primarily used, but I would just go on LinkedIn, try to find those companies, try to find that common connection section, especially if I had that Richmond logo. But other than that, I would also just try to ask professors, try to ask friends, because a lot of people think that they have to be like, this alumni or like this, really established person. My first job, I actually found through a friend of a friend, because I kind of asked, like, oh, like, do you know anyone at this company? And they're like, yeah, I have a friend that works there. And it wasn't some sort of official, employer, like alumnus or anything. It was just someone that was casually just like talking to at a party. And so there's definitely ways, there's not like a one way to look at networking. So I thought that was pretty cool. So definitely kind of take that approach of, utilize your network, but also don't be afraid to utilize LinkedIn. It can be powerful in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I always drive people to LinkedIn. I think it's probably one of the most like tactical, like one of the most practical ways to use, just because the search features are so fantastic with LinkedIn. Yeah, you can find all those really like niche connection areas, which is awesome. So we talked a little bit about sort of getting started, but now that you all are in your careers, what is networking? I mean, is it a little bit different? Like what does it look like for you now, especially now that you're in you're in a job? And I mean, maybe you're looking to move, maybe you're not, that's fine. But in terms of now versus when you were getting started, especially as a student, what does networking look like for you now?
I think I'm a bit further out of college. So I think where I'm at in my career may be a bit different. So I think when I was younger, and even when I was at Deloitte, you are just very open to meeting new people, learning different things. One like LinkedIn, I think is a big one. But it also like other companies will like reach out to you, recruiters and whatnot, and you might not count it as networking, but it is. Like if they say they just want to have a conversation, I always say yes, even if I have no plans to leave my current company, because it's just another person in my network who, if I do decide to make a change, that person can connect with me or connect me to maybe another recruiter who they worked with at another company that I might be interested in. So that's a big one. But I will say, once you get to a point in your career where you, let's say, are a bit more settled. So let's say I think I want to do this strategy and ops thing in the tech space long term. I might narrow my focus a bit to say I'm going to grow my network with people in Twitter to make it very deep, and maybe talk to folks who worked for Google's or this company or that company who have backgrounds and connections at other companies that can help me grow. So I think as you get more professional experience, you start to narrow it a bit. Excuse me, but I know a lot of this conversation has been around like your professional career, but also networking is very clutch when it comes to volunteering. So if you want to do work in the community, a lot of connections are made doing volunteer work that can also be translate to professional opportunities, because a lot of people who are on boards of nonprofits tend to be pretty senior folks at different companies. And then also just different things that happen in your life, like networking with this guy who maybe cars is his thing, and you're interested in a certain car, and he knows somebody who will give you a good deal or something like that. It's just, you never underestimate the relationships that you can build with folks. But I say from a professional standpoint, the further I go, the ability for me to completely drastically change my career gets smaller. So I start to narrow in on who I focus my networking with.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to agree. For me, it's my second job out of college, so definitely not like a super long time. But for me, networking is a lot more internal now, because I'm looking at how can I grow within my own company. So I'm still networking in the sense that I'm reaching out to people in my own company, but different departments, different locations and teams. But the same principles still apply. I need to reach out, maintain that relationship, have that conversation, and follow up. So definitely, it's a lot less cold outreach and more of like having those established relationships. But I do agree with Dwayne on like the volunteering or the non-professional side of it. Like I am part of a church group, and a lot of people from that group, I do find people that I can even talk to professionally about. And someone from that group actually spoke at one of my company's panels. So it still intersects in a way. So it's really cool to see that happen. And that is something that I can definitely see myself reaching out to them if I ever wanted to change jobs or anything like that. So definitely utilizing your network completely is a big benefit.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, guys. I personally and professionally both completely agree with using your volunteer experiences or any boards that you might be a part of. And for those folks who are younger and maybe you're a current student out there in in our room today, I definitely encourage that. I mean, like I said, personally, it's being part of boards and other civic organizations just has been incredible, especially if you're moving to a new area. As both of you all have done over your career so far. I mean, as you're moving to a new area, involving yourself in local civic organizations and or boards in the area does wonders for you in terms of meeting folks and expanding your network, and just knowing folks who work in other areas that you can get to know. So yeah, so thanks for for mentioning that. I think it's a fantastic thing to do. Also gives you life outside of work, which is really great. So for those out in our room today, don't forget that you can submit questions to me anonymously through direct message, or you can just pop them in the chat should you have them. So hopefully our discussion is prompting you to ask some questions out there. My next question for you guys is, in terms of job searching, we touched on this a little bit. If there's anything else that you have to add, so I mean, do you have any advice for folks who are specifically wanting to utilize their network for job searching, in terms of, I guess it might be good to talk about some, brass tacks with this, like how, when you're reaching out to people, what do you say? How do you approach them if your main purpose for this is to land a job?
Yeah, so the main go-to tactic that I had when I was in school was I would find someone on LinkedIn that I thought would be great to talk to. I would request and then send that little message, and I would say like, hi, my name is Byung Ho. I came across your profiles. I was looking through, a technology company or technology position. I saw that we both went to school here or did this common interest, and I would love a quick chat. And it just creates like a really quick message of like, do you want to connect with me or not? And that was my go-to advice. And then outside of that, anytime I met someone in person, so any career fair that I went to, any networking event, any even I know some companies that they like come to just to do like their focus session. Like afterwards, I'll just tell them like, hey, I would love to connect with you, chat with you afterwards, and that's a great way to just like get the ball rolling. The one advice I will have for a job specific is definitely be direct, because that's something that I was not when I was doing a lot of informational interviews or reaching out to people. I was not direct about what I wanted afterwards. But for me, like it's perfectly fine to say, hey, I'd love for you to read my resume over or refer me to a position I was looking at. It's definitely like to get a more actionable, like here's how to actually get a job afterwards from all this networking. You want to make sure that you can say what you want, and that's perfectly fine. I think everyone understands that, you're networking to maintain a relationship, but also to get something out of it, and that a lot of times is to get a job. So
yeah, I like my current job and my first job at Deloitte, I got through networking, if you will. So the first one, I wanted to do the Deloitte internship, and I found out about it after the deadline to submit my resume. But I worked in the career services office, so I had been there for 3 or 4 years at that point, had a good track record, was thought as a reliable, good student employee. So the associate director at the time, who's no longer at Richmond, chatted with the recruiter to say, hey, we have a really good student who's interested. Would you be willing to still review his resume? And they said yes. And based on that, I was one of 2 people that got that internship the first year Deloitte ever recruited at Richmond. So that was a situation where, had I not had that relationship and had that positive reputation in the career office, Joe was his name, wouldn't have been willing to stick his neck out to talk to the recruiter from Deloitte for me. So went to Deloitte, did all that, fast forward, worked consulting at different companies for about 9 years, took a short break doing internal strategy work. And that first job I worked was with a former client, somebody I had worked with as a consultant. Again, her team had an opening. She and I had a good relationship, and she thought I was perfect for the role. So got that job, found out that the company wasn't a good fit for me. So I knew I wanted to make a change pretty quickly. And then I was interested in working for a company in technology and in a role where I could work from home. And I just happened to see an article that a list of companies who were fit that background, and Twitter was one of them. My best friend, the guy who was the best man at my wedding, who also graduated from Richmond, had just interviewed with Twitter and gotten a job offer, but did not take it. And his offer was in the recruiting org. So I said, hey, I saw this article about Twitter. These are the roles I'm interested in. Do you mind sharing my resume with one of the recruiters who you obviously know now? And he was able to do that for me. And they ended up finding a role that hadn't even posted yet that they thought my background was good for, and that's how I ended up at Twitter. So it was 100% like all through networking. It was not me submitting my resume, me reaching out to anybody. It was folks who I already knew. I had warm connections, and again, based on my track record, people were willing to stick their necks out to say, "Hey, this is somebody who you should connect with." But I will say on the reverse side, as somebody who is contacted multiple times a week by current UR students or former students, I will say I think the comment about being direct on what you want is key. So folks will reach out to me and say, "Hey, what can I do to work at Deloitte, or what can I do to work at Twitter?" And they haven't told me what their background is, what their interests are. They haven't looked at our career website to even know if we're hiring for anything that they would be interested in. So I think if you are interested in a job at a particular company, at least go and check out that company's website to see the roles that they have. And even if they don't have it on their website, know the type of role you would want in the company. Because then that helps the person who you're networking with better support you, because again, you can have a great relationship. A person can say all they want, but if I'm gonna say, "Hey, we should hire such and such for this role," if I've just met you on LinkedIn, I don't know you that well, I at least want to have some proof, something in your background that I feel comfortable putting my neck out. Because if not, if it didn't work out, then that kind of hurts my reputation internally. So I think growing relationships that you have now can put you in places that you don't know you want to go. So always have a positive relationship interaction, and I think always be willing to talk to folks, and then be clear about what you want out of that conversation with the person when it comes to a job.
Yes. Do you want to consult for us, Dwayne, in our office? Because that's exactly the advice that we give folks. Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, both of your advice there is great. And I think the key thing, and even if you're not a current student, even if you've been out for a little bit, I think it's a really good reminder there, Dwayne, to just remember, that's the other work that you have to put into this, is you have to know what you're interested in, right? And even if it's multiple things, or you have a vague general idea of what you're interested in, still being able to communicate that to the person that you're talking with is so much easier, because I think, 9 times out of 10 people are really happy to help. They just need to know what you need help with, right? And so reminding them of that, or letting them know this is what you're going after, is super helpful. So thanks for that. And we do have a question, which is, thanks so much for submitting this. So this person asked, how much time do you dedicate to networking in your first year or so out of college? Thinking within own company to get to know people and making connections when starting out.
I think of course, it all depends on the company, right? And if the first job you have, is what you want to do long term. I would say if you can help it, at least 2 or 3 coffees a month. We just always say coffee, even if it's not a coffee. But like, can I grab you for a coffee chat at 3 p.m. in the afternoon? Yes, you can. I would say like 3 or 4 a month would be key. And it's also, I would say, one of them is like how many people you talk to. So you can talk to 100 people, but you also have to talk to them a lot for that relationship to grow. So I might talk to Becca today, and I should probably check in with Becca in maybe 3 or 4 weeks, even if it's just a note. "Hey, Becca, I just want to see how you're doing. Saw this article you might be interested in, or remember we talked about X, Y, and Z." It shouldn't be a whole lot of one time, just, "Hey, can I chat?" Because you'll spend a lot of time meeting a lot of people and you may not get anywhere. So that's the other thing to keep in mind. I would say 2 to 3 coffees a week, or lunch, or whatever it may be, to talk to different people, to learn different things. And then once you connect with a few people who you think will be beneficial, try to grow that relationship with them, one, by adding value, and then asking them or telling them how they can help you and see what they can provide.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that. The hard part that I realized, actually, I did a lot of things that Dwayne's telling you not to do. My first year when I was in school, I think I had like an Excel document, and I was like, I'm gonna reach out to like 2 people a week. So by the end of the semester, I think I reached out to almost like, I don't know, like over 30, 40 people. And I found that a lot of the times it was that one-off conversation where I got to learn a lot, but I didn't really get anything out of it. And I did maintain a couple relationships with like 5 or 6 of them, just like long term. But the biggest thing is like definitely want to keep yourself organized. But patience is really key here. Like there's not a set amount of hours you can dedicate it. It's because it's not your timeline. It's whatever the people they're reaching out to. If they're available, if they're willing to talk to you. I reached out to someone and they responded back to me in like 3 months. So, I can dedicate all the hours I wanted to for that 1 week, but they weren't ready for that. So I would say spend less time on like how much time do I have to focus per week or like dedicate to that, and more so what is my long-term goal and how can I get to where I need to by reaching out to very high quality people that I'm going to connect with over a long period of time.
Yeah. Thank
Can
you.
I also, I just want to add one thing. In all of this, what has been lost is like the mechanics of networking. One thing you can and should do is even with your friends, people you already know, just catch up with them periodically and grab a drink, have a coffee. Again, the guy who was able to get my foot in at the door, he graduated a year after me. He didn't work for the part of Twitter I would have worked for, but we have a really good relationship and he was able to make a connection with me. So it's just maintaining those relationships with your friends helps you get in that rhythm as well of going out to think about, I haven't talked to this person in a while, and to hey, let me get you coffee or let me get you lunch, that type of thing. I think because one of the big things you can get out of networking early in your career is just meeting with people so that you understand how to network, and then you get better at it and more focused to get specific careers or business if you start your own business, that type of thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think like both of you guys, I mean, pretty much almost any position that I've gotten, any job that I've gotten has been through folks that I know, or they were sort of the cheerleaders for me in terms of referrals. But I remember very specifically when I was my first job I had at grad school, I had a very small cohort for my grad program, and higher ed is sort of a small world. And I remember I was catching up at a happy hour with some of my grad school friends and happened to mention that I applied to a job at a specific institution. And she said, "Oh, no way, my husband coaches there. Let me introduce you to some folks." And those conversations that I had with those folks were pivotal in me getting that sort of inside information about the institution and the office, and being able to really make my way in. So I agree completely, Dwayne. Practice the art of networking with your friends, and so that way it becomes a little bit easier. And I think like we talked a little bit about before, it's about telling your story, right? It's about talking about what you want, talking about what you're interested in. And once you're comfortable with that, I think the rest of it becomes a little bit easier. So thanks for that. So this is a little bit more about brass tacks, and good questions, guys. Please keep them coming. We touched a little bit on this earlier, but in terms of, being, because it is a very reciprocal relationship, maintaining these and having it being a good contact for you. So what are, over your careers, what are some ways that you all have, paid it forward to those that have helped you and kept it a reciprocal relationship?
Yeah, so when I was first starting, I remember getting really nervous about reaching out to people just because, they worked at crazy companies like Google, Goldman. Like I was like, why would anyone want to help me? I'm just like a student. But my career advisor actually told me something that still sticks with me, which is, if you were in their shoes, would you help a current student? And I was like, of course, like I would love to help out. So my big thing that I pay for is just keeping that in mind. Like, even though they're not getting something like directly from helping me or just having a conversation with me, I know that like at the end of the day, someone might have helped them. And I know that as I'm growing in my career, I'll help the people that are reaching out to me as they come along. So that's how I pay forward. And I would say everyone for the most part is really friendly. So, it's not some sort of like everyone has to get something out of it at the right moment. It might come later on in life. So, hopefully all of you guys, as you guys are later in your careers, you guys can also kind of pay it forward to like the next generation that is struggling to find a job or struggling to network as well.
Yeah, I agree. Working with people, like again, I will always say yes when folks reach out to me online. The other thing I think is just one if anybody ever puts their neck out for me, I make sure I'm gonna make them look good. I think that's a big one. And then also providing value to those folks. So again, I know it sounded weird, but let's say, hey, actually, if you don't mind me talking too much about you and I, Becca, like Becca reached out and she found out that my wife and I are expecting twins. Well, she just had twins 5 months ago. And a situation like that. And she was telling me, hey, I have this, I have that. Like the relationship could have been very much, hey, Dwayne, I know you went to Richmond. Can you help me? I would have always said yes. But now, like, my wife has never met Becca, but she knows who Becca is because of that conversation and now that other connection with Richmond. So it's stuff like that. It can be personal, it can be professional. Hey, such and such, I know that you mentioned something about procurement, and that's your role. I have this, I saw this event uptown in Charlotte. Would you something you want to attend? I know the people putting it on, stuff like that. So even if the person hasn't given you anything, like when you have the ability to add value to the person who you've connected with, I think that's a really big one. That's how you grow very strong relationships. Again, it is kind of transactional, but networking is about benefiting somebody. So if you haven't actually gotten anything quite yet and you think that's a value relationship, it may take you adding value to that person through recommendations or personal life. I mean, the personal thing is a big one. How's your kids? What's going on? Oh, I saw something about the school system. I know you have 3 kids in school. Hope you're okay. Stuff like that, I think, helps to build your network and make that person feel like you care about them a bit more than whatever it is you may want out of them.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yes, and I'm really excited for you and your wife with those sweet babies on the way. Yeah, it is absolutely about that personal connection too. I think that's what's helped me in a lot of my professional relationships is, remembering the details about them to ask when next time you see them. Oh, I remember your kid is in your not kid. I mean, I remember that, your son is in college. How is he doing? Those kinds of things that really go a long way in letting that person know that you remember details about them and that you care enough to ask. So thanks for that. I'm probably wrapping up my questions soon. I think I have probably one more. So out there in the room, if you all have questions, drop them in the chat or direct message me. So my last question for you guys is just sort of about like where we are now in mid-pandemic world, whatever we're calling this situation that we're in. We've been in this for a while now. I guess it's sort of maybe a broad question, but what has worked for you in this pandemic situation that we've been in terms of networking? Have you done a lot of virtual networking? Like, how has that worked for you? Just sort of want to get a sense of how that's going.
I think it has, for me, networking has increased because folks are more used to the virtual experience. I mean, I don't know for the students, but I think anybody who is not, like, could you imagine 2 years ago saying, hey, to somebody, do you mind video chatting with me for us to, like, it's just not something that people did. Like, it was an in-person thing, or maybe you talked on the phone or something like that. But a lot of your networking was done with people who were close to you or via email or something like that. So now, again, folks will email me a lot, and it's just a quick chat, which that allows me the ability to network more because I can have a break in between meetings and I don't really have to go anywhere. I don't have to step away or drive anywhere to do it. And I think the job market, again, this is probably the best time to be looking for a job if you're graduating soon or in the market. When I graduated 2012, it was not as good because of the economic collapse that had just happened. But because of that, folks are aware of all the opportunities out there, and where folks feel like they know somebody who they can talk to, they will take more advantage of that. And then on the flip side, companies like mine, like, we want the best and the brightest. So if somebody is taking the initiative to reach out to ask about Twitter, what do we do? That's probably a person who will take some initiative when they're in the company, who would be a decent hire. So companies are more willing to have folks network. A lot of companies also have referral bonuses, and they're very high right now because recruiting is such a huge thing. So I think for me, I think it's way on the uptick. It's happening a lot more. And again, for me, I am always fine, happy, especially anybody who went to Richmond. I will make time to chat with them. And I have to imagine it's the same for most people who you may be reaching out to.
Yeah, I'm also the same way. When no one's reach out, always happy to help. And I think for everyone at Richmond, I don't want to speak for everyone at Richmond, but I know everyone that I've reached out to at Richmond have always been willing to help out as well. I actually did a lot of phone calls and video calls when I was in UR before pandemic, just because unless I met them on campus, for the most part, I was reaching out to people and they just said, hey, let's do a phone call or video call. So I was pretty comfortable with that environment before going to COVID, but I guess in COVID, a lot of people have been reaching out a lot more. And I've also been reaching out to people just to make sure, not for a job, but just like catch up and learn more. The one thing I'll just add to what Dwayne has said is the remote factor. So my job's actually fully remote because my company's based out in Boston. And so I would have never been able to work there if I, to live in Virginia just because they're in Boston, but because it is a pandemic, they allowed that flexibility. So definitely take a look at companies or roles that you might have thought, hey, that's not possible because they're in a different location, but now they're completely remote, and you might have a better chance getting hired because of that remote factor. Like the fact that you are in a different location. I actually have a team member who her office is in Ireland, and her team's in Ireland, but she works here in the U.S. So it can also go international. So definitely take advantage of that. Dwayne mentioned it's a great time to apply. It's also a great time to see, where do you want to live and where do you want to work? Because that can actually be separate now compared to the past.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I sort of had thought that, it made the pandemic and made things a little bit easier now that we're all, and you're exactly right, Dwayne. I think pre-pandemic, I maybe had 3 Skype appointments ever. Yeah, it's fantastic in that way that people we're used to it, for better or for worse. It's just sort of an accepted thing right now. So, that's the end of my questions. I mean, unless you guys have any last minute advice for folks, but I think we've covered a lot, and I really appreciate it. Just having your perspective for folks that are, out there actually doing it and finding success with it. And I appreciate you sharing, especially the beginning part of your journey where, might not have been completely comfortable with this. So yeah, Dwayne, did you want to chime in?
No, I was just gonna say thanks for having me and let me chat with folks. Anybody who is interested in consulting, big tech strategy, feel free to connect with me. I'm happy to talk with you more about specific questions.
Thanks, Dwayne.
And I'll just add, I don't have like a super long established career. It's only been out of school for a couple of years, but I would say any current student that just wants to learn more, or is struggling to figure out what they want to do. I came in as a business major. I tried so many different departments like English and science. I honestly had no idea what I was doing. And then, finally I have a semblance of that. And so if anyone that is just struggling I don't know what I want to do and I don't know how to network, I can definitely provide some insight. And also if you do want to work at HubSpot or want to work at a tech company, I have some general advice for that. So definitely reach out as well.
Thank you both. Again, I really appreciate it. And I'm sure that our audience members appreciate your good questions and your insight in the chat. So for now, we will wrap things up, and I hope that you all, question, do we have your email somewhere if we want to contact? If you guys are okay with that, I'm happy to send that out to the folks that came to the event. Cool. Looks like, thanks, Dwayne. And thank you, Young Ho. Yeah, so there are their emails there. In my follow-up, I always do a follow-up email to folks that attend my event, so I will also send those out. And I'm going to snag yours. always do a follow-up, so you guys can have those in your inbox as well. But again, appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.